Just a friendly reminder before the video begins, you will hear 2 stories in this video and both have new updates. Now on to the first story. Before meeting my current girlfriend, I had been single for a long while. I had several really rough relationships where we just didn't work and it was sad. I had been on the dating apps and it was draining my will to date. Just horrible experiences and I felt like I was just making myself depressed. My best friend said he knew this girl who felt the same way about online dating, had some really bad experiences and was perfect for me. We hit it off almost right away. Our first day was amazing. Our second date was amazing. We went from strangers to seeing each other twice a week. She asked to put off the physical part of our relationship and no joke for 2 months we didn't have sex. We didn't have sex until we went away for the first time. We were in a hotel room and it was so awkward. Never have sex for the first time when you are also staying at a hotel together for the first time. We got into a groove and I think we'd both say that we have a great sex life. It's been 6 months. Things are going great. We had our first mini vacation together and not long ago she told me she loved me, and I quickly followed. Cut to Sunday and my friends and I are talking. My best friend is busting the chops of another friend. It was in good fun but he made a joke that our other friend took a little too seriously, so as retribution, he turned to me and told me that my best friend, the guy who introduced me to the girl I am in love with, was not only her FWB but they had one last sexual encounter between our first and second date. I nearly threw up. I know she had a FWB situation and after our second date she told me she wanted to hold off on the physical but that she was done with the FWB and wanted to know if I would do the same, be exclusive. I didn't have a FWB situation. I wasn't seeing anyone else, and so I cool with it. I wasn't super excited that she was with a different guy, but it was in the past. She never brought it up again and I was happy to never think about it again. Until my buddy dropped that nuclear bomb. My friend could only mutter dude. And got angry for being outed. He immediately texted my GF who blew up my phone. My best friend's thoughts on that subject are, get over it. He was angry that our buddy outed him, but felt that it was funnier more than anything and tried to joke we could share notes. I love my friend but he's gross. He has a natural charm and can get with women, and somehow convinces them to do gross things. He will share bits and pieces of his escapades and I'm now convinced some things he shared must have been with my GF. He's got a huge dong, which is another blow, given I'm average, I think. On one hand, he's fun and charming but he'll openly admit that he likes his role as FWB and isn't looking for anything serious. So he's not too concerned with her pleasure or making her feel valued. On the other, he's into some weird things. I haven't seen my GF this week as we were both busy. She knows I learned about the background. She sent a long text on Sunday and it's basically, yeah, he and I banged. I'm with you now. Get over it. I'll see you Friday. I'm really kind of grossed out. The friend who outed the situation told me that I shouldn't get too upset and another friend said it all had racial undertones. I feel really gross about it. My friend would occasionally mention things he did and now I can't stop picturing it being my GF. Some dudes might get off on that. Others might be totally cool with it. I feel super awkward, inadequate and gross. TL, Dr. Best Friend set me up with a great girl. We fell in love. Never mentioned that he had been her FWB for months before we got together and they had one final night together between our first and second dates. Now it came out and suddenly everyone's telling me to just forget it and move on. And there are racial undertones. I feel grossed out by all of it. I feel crazy since no one wants to talk about this. Relevant comments where the op has replied. _shashasa. If you had known about them being FWB before your first date, would you still have one on the date? If the answer is no, then I think you have your answer. At the end of the day, everyone involved lied to you and seemed to have no remorse about that, and were committed to continue lying until they got outed. Further, setting your friend up on a date, then banging the girl afterwards seems like a pretty shitty thing to do. Oop replied. No, I probably would have respectfully declined. Idle Igloo. I was expecting more apologies and shame from your GF. She told you to get over this thing they purposefully hid from you. They broke your trust and grossed you out and now she is making you feel bad for it. Is that correct? It is a gross thing. And if she actually cared about how you feel maybe there'd be a way to get past it, but she doesn't care so these thoughts are going to stay in your head if you stay together. I know being alone sucks, but she proves you can find and attract people. Dump her so you don't feel like the pity BF. Then sit your friend down and tell him that you feel grossed out. HW did that. Cut him out if you need to, or keep him if he seems to understand he fucked up. Oop replied. She sent a series of long texts basically saying she was sorry and explained herself and what she had done and then explained the situation and tried to reassure me. I didn't respond and within 5-6 minutes she confirmed we are doing something Friday and then said, we'll get past this. Let's look forward not backwards. After that I made perfunctory conversation but she could tell I was annoyed/angry and she said the above. Basically look forward not backward. Chiridarasu. What are the racial undertones? Oop replied. He's not white. I am white. Armadillo days. Seriously? Vaginas don't wear out with use. You know she has had other partners before you and presumably, she wasn't your first either. Who she did before you and her were a thing shouldn't matter to you in the slightest now that you two are together. If it does, you deserve to lose her to someone who is ready to be in a healthy adult relationship. Oop replied. Yeah, I get the science behind vaginas not wearing out. It's not her being worn. It's that she was with my best friend, a person whom I've known intimately for years. I know his proclivities. I know the kind of weird shit he did. And, it's not like it's someone in the past she won't interact with again, or have less interaction with. He's my best friend. I have to face that every time I see them. Written it, Mom. This makes me think that you don't really care that they were together but that you feel like you can't ever measure up to your friend. You said she cut things off with him after the first date. That means she liked you enough after spending one day with you that she cut him off. She also has been with you since. This sounds like you already passed her bar for measurement. At this point you have got to decide if you want to work through this or not. She definitely shouldn't have hit it and neither should your friend, but you can't change the past, you can only decide how you're going to move forward. Oop replied. What they did together was no doubt gross. I have no illusions, and his grossness is a fact of life. Would I prefer not to tread where he's been? Yeah. Do I feel like I can't measure up? In a very tangible way, I can't. Update August 14th, 2022. Thanks for everyone's advice. Definitely didn't break up. I couldn't go through with breaking it off. I read all the comments and had about 50 arguments with her in my head where I played both sides. Then I got ready to end it and dump her. But Wednesday she was informed that there had been a horrible tragedy that rocked her whole family and she was just beside herself. She was so upset that I had to call out of work at the end of the week to go be with her. She begged me not to leave, so I told her I would stay. I work in a field where I'm exposed to these kinds of issues on the regular and was able to help her family navigate some common issues and help explain what happened. Her family is really not in a place to do anything right now. So I'm going to spend the rest of the weekend here as no one is eating or thinking clearly and so they need some people who can help relieve some pressure. I had to call my friend because I didn't have some things I needed. So he went to my place, got everything, drove the 2 hours to bring it and then offered to cover my shift on Monday so I can stay a bit longer. That's the kind of thing I meant when I said he was a good person. He'd drive 4 hours round trip and cover for you without expecting anything in return. Last night GF was going to bring up the issue between us. But instead of having a difficult conversation in the midst of these circumstances, I asked that we just drop it. She wanted clarity and I asked that we ignore it and move on. Act like I never found out. She agreed to that. She's been in need of a lot of emotional support and she has been really struggling. But throughout everything she's taken time to tell me how much she loves/appreciates/cares for me and has thanked me repeatedly for helping out. I was helping her mom clean up from a meal and she thanked me for all the help and told me some things my GF confided in her. It was very sweet and apropos of nothing. Her family has been incredibly welcoming and kind despite the circumstances and the fact that I only met them twice before all of this. It's a little weird to go from being at dinner at a restaurant and a family birthday to sleeping in their daughter's room and helping them understand complex issues. Altogether it's really weird and our issues feel a million miles away. I feel awkward about having considered breaking up with her. I had gone over it a million times in my head. I'm not sure how long she'll need me here for, or how long she intends to stay, so I guess I'm sleeping on her floor for a while yet. Does it suddenly not bother me? It still bothers me. Some people said that their behavior was inexcusable and others said I was a dirtbag for bringing it up. I still feel like they lied to me. They knowingly didn't disclose what their relationship was. It had been sexual and they said they were just distant acquaintances. Neither ever mentioned the entire time we were dating in the early phase that they had been going at it. Moreover, we had spent a lot of time together as a group and they pretended to just be acquaintances. That feels really shitty to me. Really, really shitty. I still feel weird about being with someone my friend was with. I feel weird that we both know her in that way. I feel weird that her past is a constant reminder when we're together. When my friend came with my stuff, they interacted for a brief moment and made a feeble attempt at a lighthearted joke about it. It was awkward. I get that on the whole they are entirely wrong for each other and were just mutually bored. She wanted a relationship and was with him until the right one came along. Unfortunately for me, the right one was me, and she was with my friend. I still find it gross. But, on the whole, I think I can get past the gross. I can get past the weird awkwardness. I have asked that this info never, ever, be shared with anyone who may not know. I have asked that the subject not be brought up again and over text I asked my friend why he thought we'd hit it off knowing their history. He wasn't apologetic per se, more of a I told you so kind of thing, but did explain his rationale. I'm annoyed at my friend and annoyed at my GF, but she needs support and so I need to put all the emotions away. I feel gross and unhappy in some ways but in others I realize that she and I have a great thing. We share a lot of goals and are aligned on so many things. I know she loves me and I her. I'll get over the dick size differential eventually and hopefully she's not secretly harboring resentment that I'm not hung like a Clydesdale. So, long way of saying nothing changed. Proceeding as if I never found out and pushing my emotions down. Best way to operate for me. TL. Doctor, I was going to dump her. I doubt I could have gone through with it, but she suffered a horrific family tragedy and I am supporting her. She confided in me how she feels about me, and it's clear she needs me right now, so I am pretending I never found out and she has agreed to act like I never found out. I'll work through my problems over time and we'll just stop talking about it and hopefully time makes it better. Relevant comments that the op has replied. Healing. Time. Now. It sounds like the lying bothers you. Don't let it fester too long. Either hash it out with both of them, when the timing is better, or move on. Oop replied. It does bother me, but I'm definitely trying not to let it fester. Right now there's no way she has any emotional fortitude and frankly I'd rather just let it slide into the past and put it out of my mind. Let time heal it, you know? You still need to talk to her and your friend about it. Otherwise, you'll bottle all your feelings and end up resenting them. Or it will come up when you are upset about something else. Oop, definitely, but I need a bit more time. I'll be more collected and cogent. LB 1076. Staying because of trauma is not a good thing. You can support her, and be her friend, but it sounds like you are not going to get over that dirty feeling, and going forward that will resurface. Advice is to get her through this in a platonic way, and then take a break. Are you both really what you want? If so, start over and rebuild, but do it on your own terms with complete transparency. Oop replied. Staying only because of the trauma would be a mistake, but without the trauma, I'm not sure I would have dumped her. It's really easy to say, yeah, fuck her, when I'm shaving or in the car driving. It's another when you're face to face with someone and you remember all of the reasons why you liked and loved them in the first place. Is it worth it? To throw everything away? I don't know. It doesn't feel like it. As for now, this is where this story ends, as there has not been any recent updates. Now on to the next story. Story 2. I, 39F, and my husband, 40M, have 4 kids, but this really only concerns our oldest daughter, Stella, 15. My husband and I want all our kids to have some type of involvement in the community, so twice a month the oldest 2 serve as ushers with my dad at our local Catholic church. This consists of them, Stella 15, Owen 14, holding doors open for people coming to church, passing out the baskets for the offertory and dismissing pews to get up and in line for communion. My father is also an usher, so they do this with him. This past Saturday was their day to usher. My parents picked up all 4 kids and took them to church and dinner. When they got home, my husband and I were at a Halloween party, but Stella texted to tell me they were home and watching a movie and asked me to send her some pictures of everyone's costumes. The next day, Stella tells me that she doesn't want to usher anymore. She said as she was holding one of the doors open, an old man named Joseph, 80s, who is apparently very active in the church, walked up to her and told her to follow him. He directed her to the main doors of the church to greet people. He held her hand the whole time, asked her how old she was and if she had a boyfriend, told her she is so pretty but she should smile more. Then he demanded that she smile at everyone coming into the church, told her that he would be her boyfriend and asked her if she loved him. She said she was very uncomfortable but couldn't get anyone's attention to help her. He then tried to make her sit with him during Mass. After Stella told me all of this, I immediately called my mom to ask her what happened because I hadn't heard anything from her, my dad or Stella about this until right then. She said that Stella did tell my dad that she was uncomfortable and he told her she didn't have to usher and she could go sit with my mom and her younger siblings for Mass. My mom told me she was not made aware of everything that had happened. All she knew was that Stella was uncomfortable around the man. So to the meat of the story. My brother, 36, came over last night to see my husband for a little bit, and while he and Hubs were in the garage having a drink, my parents dropped by unannounced to bring the kids some candy. I hadn't spoken to my dad since I had learned everything that had happened at church a few days prior. So after greeting my parents, I asked my dad if Joseph serves in an official capacity at church, and my dad said no. I then asked my dad if he was going to talk to the head priest to make him aware of the situation, and he said he only planned to talk to him if Joseph gave him any pushback. I argued that the priest should be made aware because we don't know if this is a pattern of behavior, if he has dementia or something other illness that causes him to not be in complete control of his actions or what. I just wanted the priest to be made aware so he could keep an eye out. My father argued back that Joseph is just a nice old man who got out of line because in this day you can't be nice without it being taken the wrong way. Cue the head explosion. I told him that sweeping this behavior under the rug by just asking this old man for an apology and not saying anything else about it makes it possible for Jospa to behave this way with another girl. My father continued to argue his point and said that if he did what I was asking, the church would just prevent him from doing what he likes to do at church. I then very loudly told my dad that if being a effing creep is what he enjoys doing, then maybe the church should prevent him from doing that, and told my parents they needed to leave. As my dad was walking out, he said sarcastically, "I'm sorry, I don't want to crucify the old man." I effing glossed it, y'all. I yelled at my father that I was sorry that he cared more about some old man's feelings than his own granddaughter's. My brother then decided to get it on the shit show and started saying I was just being vengeful and wanted to vilify the old man and preclude him from a public space and that what happened wasn't that big of a deal, while standing 3 feet from Stella. I was so effing pissed at this point I was crying and shaking. I told my brother that he likes to act like he's the smartest person in the room but he's a lazy poss who drowns himself in conspiracy theory bullshit because he feels it justifies his laziness. I told him he was loser and he needed to get out of my house. My dad immediately went into damage control mode and apologized for making me feel like I was making an unreasonable request or like I was personally going after some guy I've never even met. He said he would talk to the priest and my mom, who was on my side completely, said that they would always do whatever they had to do to keep their grandchildren safe. I couldn't even look at my dad. I just asked them to leave and said goodbye to my mom. I went back out to the garage where my husband was and explained everything that had happened because he was expecting my brother and I to come back out. He wasn't involved in the conversation because initially I was just going to try and get them out of the house as quickly as possible, but then when everything started I went into fight mode and didn't even think about getting my husband. He is also 100% behind me and feels that my dad and brother are both in the wrong, but he's letting me take the lead on this since it's my family, but will absolutely be there for any other conversations we have on the subject. So, am I asking too much? Is notifying the people in charge about what happened going too far and vilifying this man? I don't think so, but I cannot explain my father and brother's position on this. Ida? Update, I have an appointment with the priest tomorrow at 2. I will be going with my father because he was there, and Stella can decide for herself if she'd like to come. I will not force her. Edit, I'd like to address some of the more common comments I'm seeing. Many people have questioned why I waited for my dad to handle this instead of taking the lead and speaking to the head priest myself. I honestly thought I could count on him. I was raped by a boyfriend in high school but never told anyone. I tried to suppress it for as long as I could, but 3 years later, I found myself in a bad situation in college, and while I wasn't harmed, it caused everything to come out. My father was beside himself. He wanted to kill the boy and felt so much guilt because he wasn't able to protect me. I honestly believed that the experience he had with me would make him act with much more urgency. Clearly, I was wrong. Regardless of that, I still should have been the one to handle this and shouldn't have waited for my dad. I also know that the Catholic Church has a shit record when it comes to SA. I love my faith and my religion, but I do have a lot of issues with the church itself. That being said, I've never been given any reason to doubt that my kids would be safe at church with my parents. They have many friends that they go to church with and are involved in youth group. I knew there was going to be some pushback simply because the initial situation happened at a Catholic church. I won't try to change anyone's mind, but I will say that my experience in the church, up to this point, has always been good, and I have found a lot of comfort in going to mass as have my children. I would never knowingly put my children in harm's way. I'll do my best to update you all after the meeting tomorrow afternoon. Thanks for all the love and support. Update November 2nd, 2023. Before I jump into the update, I want to address some of the comments I was seeing. Stella was not alone at church. She was there with her grandparents, just not standing directly next to them the whole time. Joseph approached her after she held the door open for him because he uses a walker and couldn't get the door open himself. When he asked her to follow him to a different door that was just a few feet from where she had been to help pass out brochures for the Knights of Columbus, she thought it was a little weird but thought to herself that he's an old man with a walker and she's in church. What could go wrong? I know the Catholic Church has a shit record when it comes to SA, but the priest we met with is a good man that I know personally. He is the priest that married my husband and one trust him to do the right thing. I won't try to change anyone's mind about the church. I don't know what your experience has been, but mine and my family's has always been good. Also, Joseph does not work for the church, nor does he head any committee or volunteer organization. He's just a weird old man who goes to church every single day and likes to feel involved. On to the update. When I got to the meeting today, which I recorded on my phone, my father started it by telling Father Thomas, FT for brevity, that at Mass last Saturday, Joseph was a little too friendly and made Stella very uncomfortable. I interjected and said that that is not all that happened. I explained everything that Stella had told me. FT was absolutely appalled. Apparently there have been issues with him before, but nothing like this. He has tried telling parishioners that if you're not a part of the Knights of Columbus then you aren't a good enough Catholic. He was told emphatically that he cannot say things like that. He was also asked not to come back to volunteer at the soup kitchen because of how he was bullying the homeless people into becoming Catholic. FT said it is clear to him that Joseph has some psychological problems, but there has never been any complaints about him like this. My father tried to say that at some point in Joseph's life, it may have been normal to speak like that to women. My mother, FT and I all looked at him and said no, it has never been normal or okay for an old man to speak like that or to behave that way with any woman regardless of the age. FT asked what I was seeking. I told him that I wanted to ensure the safety of all the young women at the parish and ensure that no other girl would be put in the position that Stella was in. I also told him that sometimes elderly people have their driver's licenses taken away and perhaps he should be barred from volunteering in any capacity at the church from this point on. FT said he would be reaching out the head of the Safe Environment program in the diocese to put some new safeguards in place to make sure that this doesn't happen to anyone else. My mother then said that my father would be speaking with Joseph, and I immediately interrupted her to say, "No, my husband and I will be speaking to Joseph." Many of you pointed out that I shouldn't have waited for my father to address this because she is my daughter, and you are all 100% right. I am not going to leave it to my father to make this man comfortable while telling him you can't talk like that anymore. I gave FT my business card and asked him to update me after he speaks with Joseph and with the Safe Environment head to let me know how they will be addressing this and to set up a meeting with me, my husband and Joseph. When we left the meeting, I told my parents, specifically my father, that what he did in minimizing this situation is exactly why so many women don't report things like this, and it was nothing short of sexual harassment of a minor. I told my father that he can still think Joseph is a nice old man, but that I would never be able to look at him the same way again, and I don't know if I can trust him with my kids. That was the gut punch he needed, because despite this new side of my father I'm seeing, he's always been a wonderful grandfather to all my kids. He owes Stella an apology, but she doesn't want one. She emphatically said she just wants to put this behind her and doesn't want to talk about it anymore. As far as my brother goes, I got a non-apology apology from him via text this morning. It shouldn't go without saying, "I'm sorry for getting involved and I wish I hadn't interjected myself in the situation. It's not my place and I support whatever you want to do." I haven't responded because I will go off on him again. I think I'm just going to let my husband deal with his bitch ass. Well, that's all I've got, y'all. Once I hear back from FT and have a meeting with Joseph, I'll try to update y'all again. Thanks again for everyone who gave advice on how to help Stella through this and how to handle another situation like this. Because let's be honest, she will.